Chapter 5. The Symbolism of Money. A holy man does not normally ask for money. There have been spiritual healers who have been given powers by their guru with the express warning that if they accepted any rewards, the powers would leave them. Many sadhus refuse even to touch money. Sri Ramakrishna had such a horror of it that he felt an actual burning in his hand if he touched it. Many people are suspicious of a guru who accepts money or indeed any presents, except simple things like fruits and flowers. In this, as in most things, Sai Baba was different. He not only accepted money but asked for it. Sometimes the demand for dakshina or alms was the first thing he uttered to a visitor. Often, too, he specified the exact sum he required. Some people were prejudiced against him because of this. It seemed so incongruous. What was the explanation? It was certainly not that he wanted the money, because he never kept it. He supported fakirs and other poor devotees, fed those who had no means to stay at Shirdi, squandered money on anything that came to hand, but never kept it. And the word squandered also must be qualified. It is true in the sense that he bought things that were not strictly necessary, and that if someone was attached to money, he would give it away right and left in front of his eyes. But it does not mean that he paid reckless prices. On the contrary, he would baggle and haggle over a piece of cloth in true market style, though he might afterwards make a free donation to the vendor. He himself continued to beg his food. Baba never possessed luxury articles, nor did he found an ashram or erect buildings or acquire property. And when he died, Baba had just enough to pay for his funeral. Baba regarded money like everything else, symbolic, and those who gave it to him were laying up a better treasure for themselves. He did not ask all. He said once, "I ask only those whom the fakirs point out, and in exchange I have to give them 10 times as much." They were his people, and by accepting alms he was taking responsibility for them. There were cases when Baba refused money, though offered, as when a man who was leading an immoral life came and offered him 500 rupees, and he burst out, "I want none of your money. You are keeping a woman in your house, aren't you? Give it to her." On the other hand, Baba might demand money just because it was wrongly come by. For instance, the lawyer S.B. Dumal received 300 rupees in fees for an appeal that he filed on behalf of some followers of Sai Baba. The appeal was granted immediately, through no effort on his part, by Sai Baba's influence. When he the next day went to Shirdi, Sai Baba repeatedly asked him for dakshina until he had taken the exact sum of 300 rupees from him. The same devotee Dumal, whose views are quoted at the end of Chapter 2, relates another story of dakshina. He said, "On one occasion, after taking all the money I had, Baba asked me for another 50 rupees. When I told him that I had no more money, he told me to go and ask somebody for it. I did, but this person refused. I told Baba, and he sent me next to Rao Bahadur Sat, who was overjoyed at the request. I did not know the significance of this at the time, but found out much later that his claim for a pension was at that time being considered, and that there was some doubt whether it would be based on the salary he drew in his last permanent appointment, or would be 50 rupees higher on the basis of a temporary appointment he had held. It was finally granted at the higher rate, the order to this effect being passed on the very day that Sai Baba asked him through me for this 50 rupees. He immediately divined this and regarded the request as a demand for the first fruits of the new pension. That was why he was so pleased. Sai Baba not infrequently took all that a person had and then sent him away to borrow more. He certainly knew when he did this. It was not a question of guessing. Once, for instance, a visitor came with 20 rupees, of which he gave 18 to a friend to keep for him, so that if he asked, he could give 2 rupees and then truthfully say that he had none more. Sai Baba first asked him for 2 rupees, and then next for 18, and anticipating his reply, pointed to the friend and said, "You can take it from him." The payment of first fruits was a frequent basis of his demands. This is a common practice not only in India, a symbolical consecration of a man's new resources. Once 2 new Brahmin visitors arrived, and Sai Baba told his devotee Deshpande to collect 15 rupees from one of them. The other offered 35 rupees unasked, but he refused it. When Deshpande asked why, he explained, "I do nothing. I receive nothing. God called for his own. This 15 rupees was due, so it has been collected. But the 35 rupees was not ours, so it has been returned." It turned out that the visitor who had paid the 15 rupees was then earning a good salary of 700 rupees a month, and had first started work on a salary of 15 rupees, and had vowed his first month's salary to a temple, but had never made the payment, so it was now demanded of him. Such unfulfilled vows, as well as first fruits, were a frequent reason for demands. For instance, a devotee who was on his way to Shirdi met another who gave him a coconut to present to Sai Baba and 2 annas to buy sugar for him. On taking leave, he presented the coconut but forgot the 2 annas. Sai Baba said, "Yes, you may go, but why keep back a poor Brahmin's 2 annas?" The devotee at once remembered and gave him the 2 annas. Sai Baba then said laughingly, "You may go now, but whatever you do and whatever you undertake, do it thoroughly, or don't undertake it at all." Again, it might happen that a demand for money was simply to test a man's character. A sadhu was once asked for 5 rupees and retorted angrily, "You ask other people for dakshina, Baba, but why do you ask me? You know that I have no money." "All right," Baba retorted coolly, "then don't give it, but don't lose your temper." A rich but avaricious man once came to Sai Baba and demanded a vision of God. "I have come all this long journey for it. They say that the saint of Shirdi reveals God quickly." A spiritual experience much prized by some Hindus is a vision of God, in whatever form they worship him, such as Rama or Krishna, one of the divine incarnations, or as Mother Kali, or many other forms. It is told in the Bhagavad Gita how Krishna thus gave Arjuna a vision of his awe-inspiring divine form, but warned him afterwards that that was not the ultimate truth, that really he was beyond form. Such a vision can be great encouragement to an aspirant, and a guru can and often does bestow it. On the other hand, it can also be a limitation, since all form is ultimately illusory. It can turn a man from the quest of formless truth. Therefore, the guru who teaches a direct and purely spiritual path usually deprecates such desires and refuses to gratify them. This was Sai Baba's attitude, and a number of devotees who asked for visions were disappointed. In fact, despite his spectacular and erratic behavior, Sai Baba consistently discouraged sensationalism in his devotees. He wanted spiritual development, not visions or powers. Once a devotee came to him who had acquired certain magical powers from a former guru, and Sai Baba insisted on his renunciation of them. He himself never gave powers to his followers. Wisdom is required and complete freedom from egoism to use them worthily. In the present case, the visitor had driven from the railway station by Jetka and was anxious to obtain his experience and return without having to pay the cabman for waiting at Shirdi. He had 250 rupees in his pocket, but hoped to keep it there safely. Sai Baba received him with mock enthusiasm, saying, "Oh yes, don't worry. I'll show you God quickly and clearly. This isn't a matter that can be delayed. People like you who seek illumination are hard to find. Most people who come here want prosperity or health or freedom from some trouble, or they want a good position or pleasure or some worldly object. Nobody wants God. How I long to see those who long to see God. One should realize Brahman before death, or there will be an ever-recurring cycle of births and deaths. A guru can give realization, and only a guru can." Then he suddenly broke off and, calling to a boy, sent him with a message to a local shopkeeper that he urgently needed a loan of 5 rupees. The boy was to bring it back with him immediately. Until he returned, Baba seemed unwilling to occupy himself with the visitor or with any other matter. After a while, the boy came back to say that the shopkeeper was not at home. Baba then sent him to another person, and then another, each time without success. Meanwhile, the visitor was getting more and more restive, thinking of the cabman's fare. Of course, he could have cut short the delay by himself taking out the 5 rupees and giving it, but this he was not prepared to do. "Will you help me to grasp Brahman?" he pleaded again. And then Sai Baba explained the symbolism to him. "But that is what I have been doing. Don't you understand? I want 5. One must surrender 5 to attain Brahman. One must surrender the 5 senses and the 5 pranas, and for that one acquires detachment. Don't you see that the road to Brahman jnana, divine knowledge of the Absolute, is hard to tread? Not all can tread it. When it dawns, there will be light. Only one who is unattached to things earthly and heavenly alike can attain divine knowledge." Not only was this Baba's rebuke for his avarice, his earthly cravings, but for his desire for a vision, that is, things heavenly also. A somewhat similar instance is reported when Sai Baba again used the symbolism of money to expose the faulty basis of a petition to know God. This time he interrupted the talk to send to a local moneylender for 100 rupees. The moneylender sent back his respectful greetings, but not the money. Messages were sent to several others also, but with no better result. Finally, Sai Baba turned to a wealthy devotee for help, and the latter, having no money with him at the moment, wrote out a promissory note and at once obtained the required amount from who had refused Sai Baba. Puzzled and resentful, the visitor later approached a regular devotee and expressed surprise that Sai Baba should have been so preoccupied with money as to forget his request. And the other devotee replied to him, "He answered your question and your request. You should have understood the symbolism. When a poor man asked for money, it was not forthcoming. But as soon as Nana Sahib asked for it, he got it. Similarly, not everyone can ask for divine knowledge. He must have accumulated the wealth of spiritual achievement first." To a large extent, the devotees learn to understand the symbolism or grasp its meaning intuitively. But even they did not always agree about Sai Baba's demands for money. The following story shows how 3 different explanations could be given. Sai Baba had asked a visitor for dakshina repeatedly until he left him penniless. He then asked him for more and sent him to Deshpande to borrow it. Deshpande explained, "It is not your rupees that Baba wants, but your mind and heart, your time, and the devotion of your soul." Sai Baba smiled approvingly when he heard the explanation, but he sent him again, this time to Dixit. Dixit explained that the demand was merely an attack on his self-esteem, so that he should not feel humiliated at being left penniless and forced to beg. Sai Baba approved this answer also, but sent him a 3rd time, this time to Nana Sahib Chandorkar. Nana Sahib was the most worldly wise of the 3. He explained that it was his practice to bring only 100 rupees to Shirdi and leave another 100 at the neighboring town of Kopergaon, so that he could send for it in the case of need and thus avoid the inconvenience and humiliation of being left penniless. This doctrine of relying on one's own resources did not please Sai Baba, and he immediately gave Nana a lesson. Sending for him, he demanded 40 rupees. Hardly had Nana left when he sent after him for another 40. Nana immediately sent off to Kopergaon for his reserve fund, but before it could arrive, Baba again asked him for dakshina, making him confess that he was penniless. In many cases, however, the symbolism was clear. Baba repeatedly asked one devotee for 2 rupees, and when the latter finally asked him why, he said, "It is not these 2 rupees of metal that I want, but faith and patience." On another occasion, Baba asked for 4 rupees, but on receiving it, said he had received only 1. "But I gave you 4, the devotee protested. "I don't deny that. You gave 4, but I received only 1. The devotee confessed that he did not understand, but Sai Baba only replied that he would later. Some time afterwards, the same man was traveling by train when a young fakir came into the compartment and asked for alms. He gave him 1 paise, a quarter anna, but the fakir asked for 4. Then he gave a 4 anna piece, but the fakir said he had received only 1. Later he met an old sadhu who asked for alms, and the same theme was repeated. He gave him 1 coin, but the sadhu asked for 4. Finally he tumbled to the symbolism of it. Sai Baba was asking for the surrender of the 4 aspects of consciousness: manas, or mentality or mind, buddhi, the intuitive intellect, and chitta, the awareness, and the ahankara, the ego sense, but was receiving only 1, the soul or jiva. On one occasion, Sai Baba asked a lady for 6 rupees, and she, having no money with her, turned to her husband and remarked how embarrassing it was to be asked for money and be unable to pay. "Don't worry," he replied. "It is not money that Baba wants. It is the 6 vices that have to be surrendered to him." Smiling approval at the explanation, Sai Baba again asked her whether she would give him her 6 rupees, and she replied that she had already done so. "Then see that you do not go astray," he cautioned her. Symbolism such as this, payment of first fruits, fulfillment of a forgotten vow, these were the 3 most frequent reasons for Sai Baba's demands for money. One thing was certain, that it was not the money that he wanted. To that no one could have been more indifferent. Nevertheless, in the last years of his life, an extraordinary flow of money did come in. It was said that his income equaled that of the governor of a province. Indeed, the authorities wanted to levy income tax on it. But as Sai Baba never had anything left by the end of the day, it proved impossible. They did, however, levy income tax on several of his pensioners, poor followers to whom he gave a more or less regular allowance.